Imagine this, a man who doesn't just preach faith but uses it as a powerful tool, a leader who builds an empire not on trust or compassion, but on lies, greed, and manipulation. His charisma pulls in thousands, convincing them that their salvation is tied to him, that he is their only path to redemption. Even when the truth about his deception comes to light, he slips through the cracks of human justice, living lavishly while the lives he ruined crumble around him. But what if I told you, no one escapes judgment forever, not even him, and the reckoning that awaits him comes from a force far greater, far more cunning than he could ever imagine, Lucifer himself. Our story begins with a man who understood the deepest desires of the human heart: hope. Hope can heal, it can inspire, but in the wrong hands, hope can also be twisted into a tool of control. The charismatic cult leader in this story knew exactly how to play this game. Cloaked in the appearance of righteousness, he positioned himself as the beacon of light, the answer to the existential fears that plagued his followers. He spoke of salvation, of redemption, offering them a way out of their despair. But what his followers didn't see was the venom in his words, the subtle manipulation that turned their faith into a weapon he could wield for his own gain. Each sermon was more than a message, it was a performance. He crafted his every word, his every gesture, to stir the deepest emotions in those who followed him. He painted a picture of the world as broken, corrupt, and in need of saving, positioning himself as the only one capable of offering redemption. He promised them the world, but instead he stripped them of everything. Financially, emotionally, spiritually. His followers gave him everything they had, believing that through him they would find salvation. Little did they know they were being led down a path of ruin. But his power wasn't just in his ability to speak, it was in his ability to escape. Even as the cracks in his empire began to show, as the truth about his manipulation came to light, he managed to evade any real consequences. Lawsuits piled up, investigations were opened, yet he found loophole after loophole. His legal team was as cunning as he was, twisting the law just as he twisted the faith of his followers. He slipped through the fingers of justice, continuing to live a life of luxury, untouchable, it seemed, by the very systems meant to hold people up. He watched as his followers, those he had led to ruin, struggled to pick up the pieces of their lives. Families were broken, finances destroyed, and spirits shattered. But none of this touched him. To him, they were merely stepping stones on his path to power and wealth. His luxurious life continued unscathed, as if nothing could stop him. But while human justice may have failed, there was a higher power that had been watching: Lucifer. And Lucifer had plans of his own. Lucifer is often seen as the ultimate embodiment of evil, but in this case, he was more than that. He was a force of justice, a force of retribution for those whom the human world had failed. For this man, Lucifer crafted a punishment far worse than any earthly consequence. The cult leader awoke one day, but the world he knew was gone. He was no longer in control, no longer the one holding the strings. Instead, he found himself in a reality where he was no longer the leader, but the follower. But this was no ordinary world. This was a twisted version of his own creation, a mirror to the false paradise he had promised his followers. In this world, every lie he had told, every false promise of salvation, became his reality. He was made to believe, fully and completely, in the very deceptions he had once used to control others. He had preached of hope, of a better life after suffering, and now he found himself chasing that same false hope. But just as he had done to his followers, salvation was always just out of reach. Every time he thought he was close, it would slip away, leaving him more desperate, more lost than before. This was no simple torment. It was a psychological prison, a loop he could never escape. Every time he reached for the redemption he had once promised others, it vanished before his eyes. Every betrayal he had inflicted upon his followers, every time he had crushed their spirits for his own gain, was now mirrored back to him. He wandered, lost in this false world, clinging to the hope he had once used to control others, now turned against him. The suffering was no longer external, it was internal. The once powerful cult leader, who had manipulated thousands with his words, now found himself trapped in an endless cycle of his own making. His mind, once sharp and calculating, was now filled with the same confusion and despair he had caused in others. The false promises he had once crafted now became his reality, and every lie, every deception, was a knife that cut deeper and deeper into his own soul. Lucifer's punishment wasn't one of fire and brimstone. It was far more poetic. He didn't need to destroy the cult leader. He simply made him live the life he had once inflicted on others. The leader, once the master manipulator, now became the ultimate believer in his own twisted faith, bound eternally to the very lies he had once created. There would be no escape for him, no loophole, no clever argument to slip through. The very system he had manipulated so effortlessly in life no longer applied. His wealth, his power, his influence, none of it mattered here. In this realm, he was just another lost soul, trapped in the prison of his own making, forever chasing a salvation that would never come. And so, the cult leader who thought himself untouchable learned that no one, not even the most cunning among us, can escape true justice. While human systems may fail, divine judgment does not, and sometimes the most fitting punishment isn't found in flames or physical torment, but in the mirror of one's own actions. Lucifer didn't destroy the cult leader, he made him live his own lies for all eternity. So, the next time you hear about someone who seems to slip through the cracks of justice, remember this: some debts can only be paid in hell. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more epic tales. Hit the bell so you don't miss the next one.